There are themes that echo through human history as if they were fragments of a knowledge older than time itself. Symbols that appear in distant cultures, as though minds separated by millennia were trying to describe the same experience. A higher intelligence woven into the fabric of reality. Among these symbols, two stand out for their depth and their mysterious convergence: the Christ consciousness and the Eye of Thoth. At first glance, they belong to different worlds. One emerges from esoteric Christianity, the other from the Hermetic traditions of ancient Egypt. Yet when we observe more closely, both describe the same state, an expanded perception that breaks the limits of ordinary awareness and reveals the unified field in which mind, matter, and energy are intertwined. This video is not here to impose dogmas or offer simplistic answers. Instead, we will explore, with clarity and honesty, the precise point where science, history, and spirituality begin to touch the same frontier. At times, we will refer to historically verifiable records, at others, to symbolic interpretations or modern readings. I will always indicate which is which. My role is to guide you through this territory with lucidity and integrity. Why did distinct civilizations speak of an eye that sees beyond the visible and a Christ-like state capable of transforming human perception? Why do these concepts reappear now, at a moment when quantum physics, neuroscience, and psychology are beginning to consider that consciousness may not be a product of the brain, but a field to which the brain connects? And perhaps more importantly, how does this relate to your life, your choices, and the reality you are creating right now? If you feel something awakening within you, a calling, an inner movement, a desire to see what lies beyond appearances, then this video is your meeting point with that calling. And before we dive deeper, I invite you to subscribe to the channel now. This is not just a gesture of support. It is an act that strengthens the collective field of awakening. When you subscribe, like, or comment, you help sustain a movement that is elevating the consciousness of thousands around the world. Our path today will be precise and profound. We will begin by understanding how ancient civilizations described the awakening of perception, a process modern physics is just beginning to glimpse through the unified field. Then we will explore the symbolism of the Eye of Thoth, not merely as mythology, but as a metaphor for a perceptual mechanism within the human brain. After that, we will dive into the Christ consciousness, not as a religious doctrine, but as a vibrational state associated with heart-brain coherence. And later on, we will reveal the exact point where these two paths meet. Take a deep breath. This is the beginning of the journey. To understand why Christ consciousness and the Eye of Thoth seem to point toward the same destination, we must observe a curious pattern found in nearly all ancient spiritual traditions. When we examine surviving texts, symbols, myths, and accounts, we notice that these cultures describe something remarkably similar: the human ability to access an expanded state of perception. A perception that does not rely solely on the physical senses but emerges from an intelligence that operates beyond linear thinking. It is important to be transparent. Historically, there is no verified evidence of a direct, literal connection between Jesus as a historical figure and Thoth as a deity or hermetic master. What we do have are conceptual parallels, symbolic patterns, and recurring descriptions of inner states of consciousness. And it is precisely this repetition, appearing in cultures separated by vast distances, that intrigues modern researchers of spirituality and neuroscience. How could societies with no contact describe such similar internal experiences? A little later, we will explore how modern physics begins to explain this point of convergence. But for now, understand that in ancient Egypt, the Eye of Thoth represented more than knowledge. It symbolized a reorganized perception, a higher form of intelligence capable of interpreting the world holographically. In esoteric Christian tradition, the Christ state is not a single figure, but a level of consciousness any human can reach when the mind and the heart enter deep coherence. What is most fascinating is that both traditions suggest the same idea. When a human reaches this expanded perception, They no longer merely react to reality, they help shape it. In modern language, this corresponds to a conscious observer state, capable of influencing probabilities and interacting more actively with the quantum field underlying all existence. Here, science and mysticism begin to move closer, even if cautiously. Perhaps this is why so many people today feel they are awakening to something they cannot fully name, as if a deeper part of themselves were being called back to a perception that always existed but lay dormant beneath layers of conditioning. This explains why people increasingly report strong intuitions, symbolic dreams, déjà vu sensations, and accurate premonitions. If this is happening to you, understand that it is not accidental. It is a sign that your perceptual field is reorganizing. Later on, we will explore the scientific basis of this process. For now, I invite you to anchor your intention in the field. Comment with the mantra, "I choose the highest timeline." It is more than a phrase. It is a vibrational code that begins shaping your reality. And soon, I will share a profound teaching about the spiritual and neurological power behind such declarations. When we investigate the relationship between Christ consciousness and the Eye of Thoth, we notice that both traditions refer to a structure that transcends time, space, and form. Modern physics approaches this through the concept of the unified field, a theoretical model attempting to explain how all fundamental forces and particles in the universe may be expressions of a single energetic reality. There is no absolute scientific consensus on this theory, but a growing body of evidence suggests that the boundary between matter and energy is far less rigid than once believed. Phenomena such as quantum entanglement and coherence indicate that the universe behaves like an interconnected network, where each part, no matter how small, influences the whole. Particles remain correlated at a distance, systems synchronize without direct contact, and fields reorganize based on subtle changes. While these phenomena do not prove any specific spiritual doctrine, they offer a modern lens through which ancient teachings can be reinterpreted. In Egyptian traditions, the Eye of Thoth was associated with the ability to perceive beyond the physical senses, a symbolic vision rooted in expanded intelligence rather than literal sight. There is no historical evidence linking this symbol to neuroscientific processes, yet its metaphorical description echoes what we now understand as states of heightened perception, moments when the brain functions in more integrated patterns, allowing deeper insights and faster intuitive connections. Similarly, Christ consciousness, viewed from an esoteric rather than religious perspective, describes a state of inner unity in which the rational mind, emotional body, and intuitive centers harmonize. Interestingly, studies on heart-brain coherence show that when these systems synchronize, perception changes, clarity increases, empathy expands, and the nervous system becomes more stable. This is not scientific proof of the Christ state, but it is a meaningful parallel. Perhaps you have experienced this without realizing it, a moment when a decision felt unmistakably clear, as if a wiser part of you were guiding the process, a sudden calm that organizes inner chaos, or an intuitive perception arriving whole, without effort. These states are not mere coincidence. They may reflect specific patterns of neural and energetic organization that science is only beginning to map. Later on, we will explore sacred geometry and how it attempts to visually represent this invisible architecture of consciousness and the universe. But before moving forward, it is essential to understand that human perception is not fixed. It expands, reorganizes, and refines itself as the inner environment changes. When you engage with concepts that broaden your worldview, like the one we are exploring now, new neural networks form, new interpretations become possible, and what once seemed inaccessible begins to unfold. For this reason, although the unified field is still a theory rather than an established fact, it provides a compelling bridge for understanding why distant traditions described a universe woven by consciousness. And it offers a foundation for seeing the Eye of Thoth and Christ consciousness not merely as spiritual symbols, but as maps for a different mode of perceiving reality. When we examine the Eye of Thoth, it is essential to separate what is historically verifiable from what is symbolic interpretation developed later. In Egyptian records, Thoth appears as the god of wisdom, writing, and hidden knowledge. He is not depicted as an enlightened human, but as a divine figure responsible for bringing language, mathematics, and cosmic order to the world. The so-called Eye of Thoth, although not always named literally in ancient texts, emerges within a symbolic system associated with inner vision and perception beyond form. The most intriguing aspect of this symbol is that, over the centuries, it has been interpreted as a map of human consciousness. There is no historical evidence that Egyptians designed it with neurological intent, yet its shape resembles anatomical cross-sections of the brain, particularly regions involved in deep perception, such as the thalamus, the limbic cortex, and metaphorically, the pineal gland. This resemblance does not prove a direct connection, but open the door to modern interpretations that view the eye as a metaphor for perceiving inner layers of reality. For Hermetic practitioners, the superior vision associated with this symbol was connected to the ability to interpret the world through a path that does not rely solely on the physical senses. It represents a form of perception that integrates logic, intuition, and symbolic awareness. It is not a vague mystical vision, but a heightened state in which individuals notice patterns, subtle meanings, and movements within reality that were previously hidden. Contemporary neuroscience describes similar experiences as moments of global integration, when different brain regions operate as a unified system, producing clarity, insight, and structured intuition. Individuals who engage in deep meditation, visualization, or mindfulness practices often report perceptions aligned with this symbolism: heightened sensory clarity, faster recognition of emotional patterns, and a more precise inner vision. Science does not call this the Eye of Thoth, but observes that brain activity changes during such states. Regions responsible for self-focused thinking become less dominant, while areas tied to expanded sensory awareness and intuitive processing become more active. Subjective experience widens. Psychologically, this state can be seen as a fusion between awakened attention and symbolic consciousness. The individual is not merely observing events, they are reading the meaning behind them. They sense nuances, interpret rhythms, and perceive emotional or situational patterns that once went unnoticed. The eye symbolizes exactly this: a vision that penetrates the hidden structure behind appearances. Many people undergoing spiritual awakening report similar experiences: heightened sensitivity, faster perceptions, stronger intuition, and a quiet clarity guiding decisions. These reports occur across cultures and time periods, reinforcing the idea that humans possess perceptual layers that can be activated and refined. The Eye of Thoth represents this capacity symbolically. Viewing this symbol as a metaphor for expanded perception does not make it a scientific instrument, but it reveals its power as a conceptual tool. It expresses a simple truth: human consciousness becomes capable of perceiving deeper patterns of reality when it achieves internal organization. When we speak of Christ consciousness, it is essential to distinguish the historical figure from the spiritual principle that developed over centuries. Jesus, as a historical person, is studied within specific socio-political contexts. Christ consciousness, however, is an esoteric concept that describes an internal state of perception characterized by coherence, presence, and unity. This state is not tied to any religion. It refers to a quality of mind and heart that emerges when the human system becomes internally aligned. In contemporary research, particularly in studies on heart-brain coherence, we find striking parallels to this idea. Heart coherence is a measurable physiological state in which the heart's rhythm becomes stable and orderly, synchronizing with brain patterns. When this occurs, perception shifts, thoughts become clearer, emotions stabilize, and intuition rises. Although science does not use the term Christ consciousness, it documents the same effects in individuals who reach this state through practices such as breathwork, compassion-focused meditation, and deep awareness. Reports from these experiences echo descriptions found in ancient mystical texts: a sense of unity with all life, dissolution of internal conflict, clarity in decision-making, and an expanded perception of meaning. Christ consciousness can therefore be understood as a convergence of emotional maturity, neurological stability, and intuitive sensitivity. In this state, individuals respond to life with discernment rather than automatic reactivity. This is not merely a spiritual ideal. It is a documented human phenomenon observed in research on flow states, emotional regulation, and neuroplasticity. One aspect is particularly compelling. When the brain and heart synchronize, neural networks associated with fear and reactivity decrease their activity, while networks linked to empathy, social awareness, and creativity become more active. This does not confirm any metaphysical doctrine, but demonstrates something measurable. Emotional and vibrational states shape perception. Those who access this state often describe a clarity that does not come from thinking, but from a deep sense of knowing. As if inner noise fades and a calm field of understanding appears, the inner and outer worlds seem to align, and choices become evident. Esoteric language calls this seeing with the heart. Scientific language describes it as neurocardiac coherence. Symbolic language portrays it as Christ consciousness. Different names for the same phenomenon, a reorganization of human perception into a more integrated state. This state is not rare. It is trainable. It is not a privilege of a select few, but a universal human potential. And once accessed, it reorganizes how we interpret every experience, shaping the way we move through the world with greater clarity and coherence. When we explore the relationship between consciousness and reality, we enter a domain that both science and spirituality approached cautiously for decades. Quantum physics demonstrated that the act of observing changes the behavior of subatomic particles. But this fact has often been misinterpreted or exaggerated. To be transparent, there is no scientific evidence that the human mind can override physical laws at will. However, growing research suggests that the observer's internal state changes how they interpret, organize, and respond to the world, and that shift fundamentally alters their lived reality. In psychology, this appears as perceptual bias. What you focus on tends to expand. In neuroscience, it appears as neuroplasticity. The brain restructures itself according to repeated patterns of attention, emotion, and behavior. In spirituality, we find symbolic interpretations of the same principle. The idea that each person lives within a psychological timeline, shaped by emotional vibration and worldview. The bridge between these perspectives lies in the human system's ability to organize information. In states of fear or contraction, the brain reinforces pathways linked to threat and defense. In states of presence, emotional clarity, and coherence, new pathways emerge, linked to creativity, insight, intuition, and the ability to perceive opportunities. The external world does not magically change. What changes is the internal access to possibilities. This reorganization of perception appears in spiritual traditions through concepts like seeing clearly, awakening the observer, and perceiving truth beyond form. Different languages describing the same mechanism. When the observer changes, the world responds accordingly. This is where the power of conscious declarations becomes essential, not as superstition, but as a psychological and energetic mechanism that shapes belief, expectation, and perception. The text you requested fits precisely here, functioning as a practical tool for activating this perceptual shift. The statements you record, in the comments or in your personal journal, are more than words. They are vibration codes. When you write, read, and repeat them consciously, you create an energetic circuit that reprograms the mind and anchors a new timeline in your field. This is why, when I invite you to comment, it is not merely for engagement. It is to nourish the collective flow of consciousness. It is an anchoring exercise. Daily repetition transforms vibration into identity. So, if you wish to seal this understanding now, write here or for yourself. I choose consciously the frequency that creates my world. Repeat it over the coming days, aloud or silently. Let it become the soundtrack of your vibrational field. Because each time you pronounce it, the universe reorganizes its particles around this new coherence, and slowly, everything that does not resonate with it begins to dissolve, naturally, without effort. What may sound mystical is, in essence, directed neuroplasticity, the transformation of attention into structure. The clearer the intention, the more stable the perception becomes, and the more stable the perception, the more coherent the reality that emerges from it. Once we understand that perception is not fixed, but a living process that reorganizes itself according to internal states, it becomes natural to explore practices that help the body and brain enter greater coherence. Modern spirituality calls this activation, while science describes it as physiological modulation, autonomic regulation, or neural reorganization. Although the languages differ, they point to the same phenomenon: the human capacity to adjust its inner state to access expanded perception. Breath is one of the simplest and most powerful ways to influence this system. Irregular breathing activates alert responses, while slower, rhythmic breathing signals safety to the brain. Coherent breathing, studied extensively, involves steady inhalations and exhalations, usually around 6 breaths per minute. This pattern organizes the heartbeat, which in turn stabilizes brain activity, producing clarity and emotional balance. It is a physical, measurable phenomenon that aligns with ancient traditions linking breath to inner awakening. Conscious visualization is another effective practice. It does not change the external world magically, but it restructures neural circuits related to attention, memory, and expectation. Visualizing calm reduces activity in stress-related areas of the brain. Visualizing goals or intentions strengthens networks that attune you to opportunities aligned with those intentions. Spiritual traditions often describe this as shaping reality, not through external manipulation, but through expanded perception. Emotionally, heart coherence has profound effects. It involves focusing on the heart while evoking a genuine positive emotion such as gratitude, care, or appreciation. Studies show that this practice reduces emotional noise, stabilizes the nervous system, and creates a sense of inner unity that mirrors symbolic descriptions of Christ consciousness. It is not metaphysics, it is refined physiology. Mindfulness practices also reorganize perception. Observing thoughts without becoming entangled in them reduces activity in brain regions tied to rumination. This opens space for insights arising from deeper layers of the mind, what mystical traditions describe as inner vision. It is a trainable ability that reveals patterns, meanings, and connections previously unnoticed. Silence plays a significant role as well. In a culture overwhelmed by stimuli, silence becomes an inner technology. It is not the absence of sound, but the absence of interference. In silence, surface-level mental activity decreases, revealing symbolic content, reorganized memories, and subtle intuitions. Hermetic texts refer to this silence as the field where spirit speaks, while modern research links it to increased activity in the brain's default mode network, tied to creativity, imagination, and emotional integration. These practices do not change the external world directly. They change the space from which the world is perceived. And this internal shift transforms how you interpret events, how you respond to challenges, and how you construct meaning. The code linking Christ consciousness to the eye of Thoth is not an external secret, but an internal process, human, accessible, alive. To activate this code is to remember an inherent capacity to perceive deeply, interpret clearly, and act consciously. When these capacities align, reality stops appearing fixed and becomes a responsive field, a continuous movement between your inner state and what the outer world reveals. This is not about believing in ancient symbols, but recognizing that these symbols endured because they represent universal structures of human experience. It is not about accepting spiritual concepts as literal truths, but understanding them as sophisticated metaphors for emotional, cognitive, and physiological states we can access. It is not about turning science into spirituality or spirituality into science, but allowing both to contribute to a fuller comprehension of human development. The hidden code is not stored in lost temples or locked in hermetic manuscripts. It is in how you breathe, sense, feel, and interpret. It is in the rhythms of your heart, the networks of your brain, the patterns of your attention. It is in your ability to unite perception, emotion, and presence. When this occurs, reality stops appearing fragmented and begins to reveal itself as a coherent field, responsive to how you position yourself within it. The invitation is simple, yet profound. Continue refining your perception. Continue exploring silence, presence, emotional clarity, and conscious attention. These practices open the doors of expanded perception, stabilize the mind, and strengthen your sensitivity to the subtle field that surrounds you. The more aligned you become, the more life reveals pathways and insights that once seemed hidden. If this message resonated with you, share it. Help expand this field of consciousness, for every awakened person illuminates hundreds of others. Leave your comment, your vibration, your testimony, not merely for engagement, but because your energy is part of this collective construction. And remember, the highest timeline is not a place in the future. It is a state of being available here and now. May you walk in peace, lucidity, and love until the next awakening. This is where spirituality becomes practice, and practice becomes transformation. Each internal state you cultivate shapes the field in which you live. There is an intelligence pulsing within and around you, and when you align with it, reality responds.